Hi, I'm Anthony from Sydney Backyard Veggies. Just over in my patch this afternoon doing a few things around the garden, and one of the first jobs I've got is to actually do some work on my sweet corn patch. These plants were planted out about 2 weeks ago, and with the warmth and the humidity we've been having in Sydney at the moment, they've really shot off. So I'm at that stage now where I need to add my first round of nitrogen fertilizer to these plants to really get them going strong and producing well. So I'm going to come over now and show you my patch where it is at the moment and show you what fertilizer I apply to my corns. So this is the corn patch that I planted out about 2 weeks ago, and these were planted out as seedlings. The variety that I'm planted here is called Max, and what I've done is I've planted out the plants at 70 centimeter rows and 30 centimeter spacings within the rows. And they're looking absolutely amazing. They've really shot up. The key with a good corn crop is to add a lot of that nitrogen. They actually take up more nitrogen than you think. I find that the more nitrogen I add, the better. And I try to add my nitrogen fertilizer every 2 to 3 weeks just to really keep them going. So I'm going to come now and get the fertilizer and show you what I'll be adding to this patch. So when it comes to fertilizers for corn, I like to go for really high nitrogen content fertilizer. My personal use, I like using sulfate of ammonia. The nitrogen percentage in this is 24%, which means that I can get a lot of nitrogen quickly to these plants. In my context, it works well. If you want to go for a more organic route, I would look at using something like blood and bone, or something like blood and bone, or even chicken manure pellets. But you just be aware that with chicken manure pellets, they've only got a 4% nitrogen, so you're going to still need to add a lot more to the ground, and you have to add a lot more nitrogen weekly as opposed to fortnightly. So what I'm going to do is, with sulfate of ammonia, I just like to add it just a little bit in between each of the plants. It's actually quite strong because it's so high in nitrogen content. It will burn the leaves if you're not careful, so be careful not to get it on the plants itself, but just a bit in between the plants. And then you'll come through and water it, and it'll just dissolve through, and it'll water and it will feed the plants. So I'm going to come through, apply the fertilizer to each of the plants, and then water it in. So once I've applied the fertilizer, it's really important to water it in well. So I will be watering, making sure all that fertilizer dissolves, water it in deeply, and then mix it all the way through. So this is the way you make sure it gets applied evenly and gets absorbed by the plant. So I'm going to come through and just continue watering the rows. So I've just finished applying that fertilizer, and these plants should be good for about 4 weeks, and I will apply a second round of nitrogen fertilizer on those plants. And at that stage I'll also be hilling the soil around the base. But for now, these are fine. I'll just make sure I keep up and check to make sure there's no caterpillar damage on these plants, and just keeping them well watered. And yeah, they're looking really, really good. I'm really excited of how fast these things are growing at the moment. So I'm hoping to get my crop off them in early to mid-January. So I will come back to these when I'm ready to hill the soils, and I'll show you how I do that for the plants. So now I'm working through my garden. I'm over at my cucumbers now, and this afternoon I'm going to do my usual harvest. Been harvesting these cucumbers now every day this week, and I've had a decent glut of cucumbers come out of this patch. So I like to come through every day just to make sure I harvest the fruit at its optimal time. Just looking through it at the moment, I think there's about probably 2 dozen cucumbers I need to harvest. So I'm going to go through there, see how much I get out. And while I'm there, I might just go and try to also train the vines around the string line. That's another task that I do pretty much every day as I'm working through my patch. So first things first, I'm going to come through and harvest what I can, and then go on and train the vines. So just coming to the vine, and as you can see, there's some nice sized cucumbers just through at the bottom there. This is probably the largest that they get, the largest I want them to get. You try to pick them up early, and it really does encourage the plant to continue to produce more cucumbers. So just coming through, and just in this one plant I've gotten 3 nice sized cucumbers. So I'm going to continue on down the row and harvest it. And before I continue on, I just wanted to show you these cucumbers. This is the vine, and as you can see, every node there is cucumbers showing up. So I'm really excited to see how many cucumbers I can get off these plants. And I've got also likewise over here. I'm going to go through. I think they're all like that at the moment. As long as the temperature stays relatively cool, not over 30 degrees, most of these cucumbers will form, which is great. Continue and harvesting. So this is my harvest, and I've probably gotten close to 20 cucumbers. I usually like to harvest them at that kind of smaller size like this, but some of them have gone a bit larger, which, although it's not the best, they're still edible. You just don't want them to get any bigger than that. So I'm going to take them inside. I have to come through every day and harvest because the cucumbers do come on thick and fast, so I need to harvest every day, but hopefully staying on, try to harvest them at the smaller side. So there's my harvest for today. Probably close to 20 cucumbers, and now I'm going to come through and just do a bit of training on these cucumber vines, and I'll just go through that now, straighten them all up, and then move on to my next project. So just coming over to the vines, what I'm doing is just bringing the vine around, continuing on the training. Here I've been doing it clockwise, so just running the vine around, just hooking it up. That's perfect. Let's continue on. And as I continue on doing, I'll show you another one again. Continuing on the row, I'm going to bring this next one, bring it across, and slowly train it. There you go, trained along the vine. So now that I've finished training and harvesting my cucumbers, one thing I do like to do at least fortnightly is to come through and give the cucumbers a liquid feed of a high nitrogen fertilizer. I really find that it really keeps the plants strong, keeps them going, and they do use up a lot of nutrients when they are producing their crops. So what I do is I, with my watering can, I'll put a watering can per row. And I use power feed for those in Australia, which is just your high nitrogen fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, but anything like that, like fish emulsion or anything like that will do. What I'm also going to do is actually add a side dressing at this stage as well, a bit of potash. Again, potash with any fruiting vegetables really helps in the plant's production. I find it's almost my secret weapon in my patch. Potash. I use it on all my fruiting veggies. So I'll just add just a little bit to the row as a side dress, and that should be enough in terms of potash for the remainder of the season for these crops. But look, I'm happy that the cucumbers have really started off now, going really strong, and we are enjoying them in our family. My kids eat through the bulk of them, so I'm happy to get the glut out of the patch to keep the keep the cucumbers on the table for dinner and lunches. So I'm over at my zucchini patch at the moment. This bed was direct seeded in October, and I always plan out my zucchinis with 2 seeds per location. And at this stage now, they're at the size where I need to come through and thin out the weaker of the 2 plants in each of the spots, but also look at adding some fertilizer and side dressing to them. They're at that stage now, just about to start to produce, and if I don't thin them out to the strongest plant, I won't get a crop out of them. I learned that the hard way 2 years ago. So what I'm going to do is come through, choose the stronger of the 2 plants, get rid of the weaker one, add some fertilizer, and then see what else I need to do around the patch. So I'm going to go through that now. So with my zucchini, I went and looked at planting a total of 5 plants in this spot, and I've spaced them out at 80 centimeters apart in a bit of a diagonal spacing. The variety that I'm growing here is called Columbia, and if you just bring it closer, you can see they're just starting to form, starting just to form their flowers. So now is the time that I need to come through and thin out to the strongest plant. Now what I look for in terms of which plant to keep in this situation, for example, I'm looking for one that has stronger growth, a lot of really bright leaves. So looking at here, I'm thinking I might keep the one on the left simply because of its location, and this one is showing some signs of yellowing in its leaves and it doesn't look like it's the best of the 2. So what I come through is get rid of this one on the right. I don't like pulling them out. I'd rather cut them at the base, and by doing so you're not disturbing the plant that you want to keep. So kind of come across here, got my scissors. I've decided to keep the one on the left, so I'm going to come here and as close as possible to the base, I'm going to cut that. There you go. So this is now clear. It just gives it a lot more space to grow. I find if you don't do it, you actually don't get a crop. They actually outcrowd each other and you end up getting no production at all. So although it's hard to pull out and remove what look like a very healthy plants, it's got to be done, especially with zucchinis. I'm going to continue on and do the rest of them now as well. Now that I've thinned out those zucchinis, it's time for me to add the side dressing. I'm going to be adding a good handful of chicken manure pellets, more for the nitrogen. They do need put on a bit more growth, and this really will help. But I also am going to increase the potassium content of the side dress by adding sulfate of potash as well. Again, small handfuls around each of the plants, and that will be sufficient. I will fertilize these plants every 6 to 8 weeks to really help them along. So I just finished applying the fertilizer to those zucchinis, and I've just given them a really good watering in just to make sure that they start absorbing those nutrients. And I'm hoping that they start flowering in probably the next 2 weeks or so. They're definitely starting to show the first signs of the male and female flowers forming through. With zucchini, I tend to struggle a lot with powdery mildew. So what I've been doing in my context is treating fortnightly with an application of copper fungicide or a sulfur-based fungicide. And I find in my context that really works well in keeping the powdery mildew at bay. And as the plants get larger, I will progressively start pruning off the older leaves to stop any spread of disease to the rest of the plant, and I will show you how I do that at later videos. So I look really happy this is all done now. They're looking really good actually, and I'm looking forward to starting to harvest. Look, thank you very much everyone for joining me in this video. I really appreciate all the support, and I hope you enjoyed watching me work through my patch this afternoon. And I hope to see you guys in the next one.